Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here today, and I wanted to have a quick chat about the MT-07 and the Ninja 400 because basically speaking, these are two of the most popular beginner bike options here in Australia, which obviously are restricted to LAMS machines, which is practically a 50 horsepower power limit or a power to weight ratio limit, which is very similar to what we see in Europe in the A2 category. But I think the MT-07, this restricted version, is quite similar to the full power version in a lot of ways, and a lot of this comparison still really applies between these two motorcycles, particularly if you're looking for a first motorcycle. Now, the MT-07, I think that came out back in 2013, and it really did add kind of a new offering, a new type of offering for that beginner segment. It was a bike which very much was designed for new riders, offering just exceptional value, really good overall specs, and an overall package which just did something really quite amazing in how everything came together. The Ninja 400, by the same kind of token, the Ninja 300 was a real standout machine that really pushed a lot of the manufacturers to offer a better sports bike option and a better option in that smaller capacity kind of segment. And the Ninja 400 took that to the next level, which did follow on from the introduction of the R3, which was a 321cc, where Yamaha pushed that capacity up a little bit. And of course with KTM bringing in their 390 models, which again, a capacity boost, but a single. And at the end of the day, these two models have been very, very strong sellers and very popular machines since their introduction. The Ninja 400, I think that's still leading the LAMS sales in its category, while the MT-07 has been a favorite for a number of years. Now, one of the big points of difference between these two bikes, these are 11.7 on road here in Australia. The Ninja, normally 7.7. So there's quite a reduction in price if you're looking at something in that 400cc category. So purely on the affordability level, obviously the Ninja 400 is going to be a bike which really stands out. And the other thing to keep in mind is because these are restricted bikes, there's not an enormous difference in the outright power between these two. Now, the Ninja 400 is an exceptionally torquey machine for that lower capacity segment. However, of course, the MT-07 is king, not just because it has quite a bit more torque, but also because that cross-plane engine, the way it delivers the torque is quite raw. It's got almost a V20 feel to it when it comes to rolling on that throttle. Not so much on the engine braking, but it's got a nice, really chunky feel to that parallel twin. And the parallel twins can sometimes get a bit of a reputation for being a little bit on the boring side. That is not a criticism I think holds for the MT-07. It's got one of the nicest parallel twin engines in it. And definitely that being the cross plane really comes down to it. In comparison, the Ninja 400, it's a really revvy machine. It's quite race-based, and obviously you're getting that super sport style bike. On both of the machines, you're getting very upright seating position. While the Ninja's a little bit more aggressive because it is styled in that super sport style kind of area, both of the bikes are designed for new riders, and so they're a very upright seating position. There's a little bit lower bars on the Ninja. They're a little bit more angled back to the rider. They're not as wide as on the MT-07. However, at the end of the day, you could jump on either of these bikes quite easily. This has got an 805mm seat height, not the lowest seat height, but still a very narrow bike. And by the same token, that Ninja 400 has an exceptionally low seat height as well, and it's very, very narrow too. So both very inviting machines. Obviously, all the basics are covered. They've both got LCD displays. They've got good vision through the mirrors. On the Ninja 400, you're getting some wind protection, which for some people is going to be big, particularly if you're riding a lot on the freeway. Just out riding this morning, jumping from one bike to the other, I did appreciate the extra wind protection that screen offers, but obviously that's a difference between looking at a naked bike and a sports bike styled machine. Now, in the braking departments, the MT-07 really does do well with those dual 282mm pedal rotors on the front. There's a lot of power there, there's good feel, but the Ninja 400 is a machine which really does offer exceptional braking performance despite having that single larger disc. And it's really a standout, I would say, how good the Ninja 400 braking is overall. Obviously, it's not quite up to the same standard as the MT-07, but it is a lighter machine, so that comes into it too. Both of these bikes in Australia come standard with ABS, which is a great thing. I definitely recommend getting an ABS version if there's an option and you're a new rider, or if you're an experienced rider, it's just a nice little bit of extra peace of mind, and definitely something that really most bikes should come standard with these days. On the suspension side of things, you've got 41mm forks on both of these bikes. The Ninja 400 gets quite a beefy suspension setup when you think about it, because it was getting the same forks as the Z650 and the Ninja 650. In comparison between these two bikes, I think they're both a very well balanced machine. You get rebound adjustability on the rear shock of the MT-07, which is a little bit of a standout in the segment. There's not that many bikes which offer additional adjustability. Normally it's just preload on the back. However, both of these bikes offer a very nice sorted overall system. I'd say that if anything, the MT-07, the new MT-07, might be even a little bit sportier than the Ninja 400, having just done some back-to-back testing. However, I will say the Ninja 400 is very, very comfortable and very controlled. And at the end of the day, there's not a huge amount of difference between these two bikes, I'd say, in the overall suspension settings. Obviously, you get a little bit more ability to adjust on the MT-07, which is nice for a lot of people. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're both well-sorted systems, at least for me at 70 kilos, and I probably do fall into that kind of ideal rider range that the manufacturers were thinking about. Now, both of these bikes, as tested, do have aftermarket exhausts on them, and that really adds to the character of the bike. We've got the Yamaha provided Acro exhaust on this one. This is the titanium muffler. It does have stainless steel headers, and it's got a carbon tip. It's a very nice exhaust. It's not really that loud. And on a similar vein, we've got the Arrow on the Ninja, which is the blacked out Arrow Race Tech exhaust with a carbon tip. And again, it's not too loud. Very easy to take the baffle out of the Ninja version though, and that does open it up quite a bit and make it significantly louder. But I have to say, in the baffled forms, both of these exhausts are something that look good, add a bit of character to the bike, open them up a little bit, and are going to give the bikes a little bit more appeal if you're into that kind of thing. So when it comes down to it, as you can see, I'm really, really impressed by both of these machines. I own the Ninja 400. I bought this for my wife as a beginner machine, but realistically speaking, it has so much to offer. It's a great everyday ride. As far as criticisms on this bike, the seat is very, very hard, and rolling off the throttle, the fueling is not the best. There are times where it's, you know, quite a harsh transition off the throttle as the fueling cuts out, which is just the way these bikes are tuned to get through emission standards. By the same token, this has got a comfort seat on it, and I've got to say the comfort seat that Yamaha have provided is a really, really nice seat. I did a bit of a comparison between that and the stock, and while the stock seat is a reasonable seat, the comfort seat really does help. But at the end of the day, the stock MT-07 seat is definitely an improvement on the Ninja 400. The Ninja 400 seat is one of really the worst I've ever seen on a bike, and it's, as I said, just one of my biggest criticisms of this machine. The other thing to keep in mind about the MT-07 is, as I said, it's got that beautiful punchy parallel cross-plane engine in it, and that does mean it can be a little bit rough at times compared to some of the competition. I would say that both of these bikes in a way share that same kind of characteristic. There's a real rawness to them, where in comparison, if you look at the R3 from Yamaha, it is super, super smooth. And if you look at the Z650 from Kawasaki or the Ninja 650, it is very smooth. Both of these bikes have a rawer edge to them, but I think that can add to the character, even if at times they're a little bit rougher on the throttle as far as the fueling. One of the big points of difference between these two bikes is the MT-07 really carries that full-size bike feel. And I think if you're looking for a bike which you're going to be keeping really in the long term and you're happy with that naked bike styling, the MT-07 is a very safe choice. Keeping in mind that the MT-07 is a slightly heavier bike, I think there's maybe about 10 kilos between the two bikes. It might be a little bit more, might be around the 15 kilo mark, but it feels like a full-size bike, and that really extends from the reach to the bars through to the difference between the seat to peg ratio being a little bit more generous on this style bike, and of course it just feeling, realistically speaking at the end of the day, like a larger machine. Now that doesn't come at the expense of that reach to the ground. It's still an easy bike to manage. It's got a nice center of gravity, a very easy bike. But if you're the kind of new rider or a returning rider or someone who's just looking for a smaller capacity machine that's going to do everything, the MT-07 really ticks all the boxes for me. And I think at the end of the day, it's got the full bike feel. It takes a common tire size. It's got a 180 50 or 55 on the rear, which of course means that you can put pretty much any tire on. That's a very common sports bike tire, so you can get sports touring tires, sports tires, you can put pretty much anything on it. It's got a smaller tire on the rear of the Ninja in comparison, which is a little bit of a constraining factor. Just something small to think about. And at the end of the day, I think this is the kind of machine in the MT-07 which is really, despite being restricted, just such a great machine to start on that it's going to last you an extended period of time and would be a bike that a lot of people probably would never need to upgrade. That's not to say that we don't get to the stage where we really just want more power for the sake of it, but at the end of the day, it's such an exceptional machine that I would really be hard pressed to buy an MT-09 over the MT-07 because it's such a great overall package. And that's keeping in mind, I love triple cylinder engines. This is an exceptional bike. Now looking over at the Ninja 400, obviously I think the sports bike theme is something that really helps push the sales for Kawasaki, alongside the fact that these bikes do have kind of the top level of performance in the category, on paper at least. And again, that really gets people quite excited. Being a sports bike, the performance obviously is a big aspect of it, and this bike definitely has the looks. It looks really, really cool. It's got that direct heritage from the ZX6R and of course the ZX10R, and I think that it really captures the imagination of a lot of riders. The fact it's very, very competitively priced, 7.7 on the road. At the moment, I think they're going out at about 7.2, so a really well-priced machine certainly helps. And the fact that this machine in restricted form offers a similar amount of power as the MT-07 also makes it an easy choice for those people who are all about minimizing weight and maximizing power, particularly in comparison to the amount of money they're putting out. As I said before, the Ninja 400 has a lot of torque for its segment. Obviously not so much in comparison to the MT-07, which is a real torque monster. However, at the end of the day, the Ninja is a beautiful, beautiful machine. It's got that really nice parallel twin engine in it. It's got a lot of torque in it. That was the big difference between the Ninja 300 and the Ninja 400. There was an enormous increase in torque. I think it might have been almost 10 Newton meters of extra torque there. And you get that through most of the rev range, and you really do feel that. Obviously, you're also getting the more aggressive ergonomics while still remaining pretty upright. It's got that more compact sports bike feel to it as well, particularly in comparison to the MT-07. And at the end of the day, if you want something that really looks and feels like a sports bike, but which is an ideal starting point for a new rider, the Ninja 400 really ticks all the boxes. So at the end of the day, these are two very, very different machines, but if you're a new rider looking for a first motorcycle, two that are very much worth looking into. I highly recommend both of these bikes. They each have kind of their own little strengths. The MT-07 is just an exceptional roadster. I really love this bike. I would own one in an instant. And if I had to replace the Daytona and I was looking around that $10,000 mark, probably the bike I'd be looking at would be an MT-07 or perhaps a GSX S750. Those are the two bikes which really impress me in the capacity, range, and at the end of the day, I think I'd be happy riding them. The Ninja 400, it's a great little sports bike, an ideal machine to pick up if you're thinking about doing some track days or getting more into the track side of riding, as well as having that real super sport feel to it. And it has a beautiful engine, great brakes. It's a great overall package that's very well balanced, and for the price is exceptional. It's not quite as aggressive as the RC390, for example, but I kind of like that about the Ninja 400 because as an everyday ride, I prefer that more road-orientated feel. I think that makes it much easier to live with. So if you've got any questions about these two bikes, don't hesitate to ask down below in the comments. Hopefully this has been some help to you if you're considering these two machines. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to sub and hit that notification bell.